Okay, hello again and welcome to the second WasteBusters virtual event. Today we are being joined by Michelle from Good Rain Farm, and we're really excited to have her here and to share with us. And she's got an activity for us as well, so it'll be a lot of fun. And if anyone is unfamiliar, or maybe you're not here with WasteBusters and you're just here to see what Good Rain Farm and what Green Neighbors is about. Green Neighbors is with Clark County Public Health, and we have recycling and waste reduction resources, natural gardening resources, and green living. With that, we have a calendar of community events that we update frequently. We have blog posts with different tips and tricks for reducing waste. And we also have different green events. So WasteBusters is a great example of something that we do here at Green Neighbors. And that is my short but sweet introduction. I'll stop sharing my screen and Michelle can take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle. I use she, her pronouns, and I own and operate Sqit Good Rain Farm. So I'm really stoked to be here today. I've participated in a lot of Clark County neighborhood groups and events and trainings over the years. So really excited to connect with this awesome program. I'm going to start a presentation and then because there's more pretty photos. This is just one photo of the farm and my kite chicken that lives out in the field and brings us joy throughout the season. So there's more. There's a few more other landscapes or other photos. And do feel free to pop questions into the chat as you would like. And I can either answer them, or if I think I'm going to answer them throughout the presentation, I'll wait till then, and then we'll definitely wrap them all up at the end. All right. Here we go. Here's Sqit. That's our beautiful logo. And some cabbage from the farm. So as I said, I'm Michelle. The farm is named Sqit in my Sinai, my Arrow Lakes native language, and that translates to Good Rain Farm. And here's a photo of some squash and a weedy bed of broccoli. So the Arrow Lakes, or the Sinai people, come from north central Washington. We're from the Colville, we're part of Colville Confederate Tribes, but the land where we originally steward was up north in Canada and is part of the headwaters to the Columbia River. So we come all the way down through the Portland area and hunt for salmon and eels and other goodies, oysters that we don't have all the way up there, right? There's a huge trading network through all of this. So that's a quick photo of where I come from. So my family still lives out near Lake Coeur d'Alene and Lake Pend Oreille out in Idaho. And so Sqit Good Rain Farm, we focus on a variety of mixed vegetables on the farm. So where we originally started was next to this Oregon white oak grove, which is an ecosystem that's endangered throughout the Willamette Valley and Southwest Washington. And we started out in Camas, Washington. We're now located in Washu and also Gresham, Oregon. We're split far apart. And that has to do with land access and what we can rent and access for farming. But these Oregon white oaks really kind of, as I was farming day in and day out in their shadow, really caught my eye and interest. I started researching them more, and through that research, I learned that you can eat the acorns, grind them up into flour. That Camas, Washington's named after, is named after a root flower. So the Camas root you can also eat. And we have some growing on the farm now. and it's coming up all over. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I'm so excited to be able to grow that food that my ancestors ate on the farm in a farm setting now. So started diving down that road and researching more. And that's when I came up with the name for the farm, why we use a Nootka rose. You can eat rose hips. And that bumblebee, our native pollinator bee, as our logo. Inspired by this photograph taken on the farm of the sunflower and that bee, but we changed both from honeybee to bumble and from sunflower to Nootka rose. But we do a community supported agriculture, so we're a local farm that is direct to consumer, and we hope that that brings a little bit more transparency to our practices through workshops like today, where we'll talk about those and also build up those relationships and keep food as nutritious as possible. So it's not flying all the way from other countries to us here in the Northwest, but we can really grow this bounty here and consume it earlier and fresher and get more nutritional value out of it as well. Oh, we also do, as part of our CSA, we also do an educational CSA where we save seed on our farm, and we share that, and we do an educational seed saving CSA with folks. So everyone gets to gather in, many hands make light work. So everyone pitches in, learns how to save seed in all the different ways, gets to save some of that seed for themselves, and also returns excess seed to us so that we can plant and do it all over again, and also send some seed back to and rematriate that seed back to communities from where it came from. So Hopi blue corn is a great example of that. So we grow Hopi blue corn, we save some of it for seed, people learn how to save seed. So they learn that great educational piece, which we're going to need more as we enter into like climate change and need for resiliency around that. And it grows really well here, actually, in the Northwest, it acclimated quite well. But we also return it back to the Hopi Nation as well to help in their food sovereignty efforts. So that's a lot of our focus on the farm is food sovereignty for Native communities. The Clark County and Portland, Oregon, the metropolitan here, has a really high number of Native community members who, for all sorts of reasons, have been relocated to urban centers. So being able to reconnect people back to community and culture has been a huge part of what drives us as a farm, and really celebrating all these food stories. Like I said, my family's from Coeur d'Alene and Lake Pend Oreille area and the Northern Panhandle, right? Those names are French. So we have a lot of French ancestry as well in my family. So also diving down and learning more about cabbages and turnips and rutabagas has been really fun to learn those stories and where they come from, and maybe the French varieties, and following those food stories, right? And celebrating that with everybody on the farm and everyone who participates through these different ways, the seed saving and the CSA. So it's a really beautiful thing. We just started it last year and it worked great. So really excited to keep doing it. Oh, and I was just talking about what we do, food sovereignty, right? Equality versus equity. So we really focus on making sure people can access our food. So like inequality is everyone gets a box to stand on, right? A helping hand. But in equity, we really want to help meet people where they're at. So you can see like the shortest person needed 3 boxes, right? And a taller person only needed 1 to reach that food. So we really do that through different pricing and access and communication that we do around the farm. So we're really focused on making sure everyone has access to our fresh, yummy veggies. So really excited for a lot of the work we do around that. And that involves, right, partnering with the food banks and food pantries throughout Clark County and Multnomah County. And I'll dive more into like how that all fits into food waste here. Um, so waste busting and other sustainable practices on the farm. So as I was saying, right, we partner with a lot of community partnerships, such as Growing Garden, NAA. I should have put LULAC in here. NAA is the Native American and Family Center, Native American Youth and Family Center. But that doesn't make a good acronym, NAA does. And then LULAC is the LULAC, League of United Latin American Citizens. I think I got it. But they've been really awesome in what they do around Clark County, especially. So we're teaming up with them to also distribute CSAs to some homebound community members. And so we start with some of our practices on the farm and how we prioritize purchasing. So really what we bring into the farm, and then therefore what do we need to manage, and when it leaves the farm, what does that look like? So this is just a quick buying guideline for the farm. We prioritize buying from Black, Indigenous, and people of color owned businesses, as well as USA made, so local, trying to reduce those carbon emissions, and heavy shipment charges and whatnot too, and just support livable wages locally as possible. So we definitely purchase used and reduced stuff off of Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. Definitely some of my favorite shopping centers. We try to buy local, as I was saying, and all of these other buy cooperative, custom crafters. We like to work with local folks with their creative outlets. Yeah. And so a lot of, for our seeds, we focus a lot on, again, like first foods, indigenous foods. And so that means going through Native Seed Search, who does a lot of seed work and food variety work. We also check out Slow Foods Arc of Taste program so that we could purchase like heirloom and native foods as well, and rare items. Uh-oh. All right. Yes. Sorry, I lost my screen there. So why buy local? And local helps reduce emissions, right? So the waste in fuel costs and shipping costs. So this is the best pixelated infographic I could find of this. I could only find it in small, and I don't have the tech skills to improve it. But it basically, to summarize, right? Anytime we have to ship something a long distance, it's going to take more time and energy and money. And that is going to result in more carbon emissions out into our atmosphere, into the air we breathe and take in ourselves. So anytime we could keep things closer, save seed locally, work with local folks and local goods, that's going to help reduce emissions and kind of fuel and time waste. Some of the things that were important for us when we were, I think it's on the, oh yeah, here they come. I got fancy with the transitions. So when we were Clark County Green Business Certified, there's that logo. A lot of that had to do with our consciousness around plastics and fuel use, as well as around what we do with waste. So actual trash and garbage and recycling programs. So we actually have a very low output as far as like trash and plastics go. We're very conscious about the plastic use, which is actually really difficult on organic farms or sustainably farmed farms, in that I'm sorry, I see that note now. Yeah, I'll dive more into that. So that really helped us a lot in our Clark County Green Business certification, was just our low output in trash, our focus on local, and our consciousness around fuel use. I can't completely get out of it. It is the world we're in, around vehicles, and like I could imagine trying to move like hundreds of pounds of produce on a bicycle. So would love to transition to electric someday as that becomes more accessible for our delivery vehicles and whatnot. But for now, we are pretty much sustainable and organic. But the trick with that, what I see a lot of our fellow farmers, is the trade-off between using harsh chemicals often comes with using more plastics. And that is more plastics as like a weed barrier or mulch on the ground, plastics to heat and keep in to protect your plants through a row cover. We use drip tape. That's a lot of plastic. It has maybe a 5-year to 7-year life, but mostly 5-year, given the wear and tear on the farm for most farms. So that's actually a really hard trade-off, and can be really discouraging. So the property we are on in Gresham, Oregon, is a farm incubator, which made it possible for us to access at a really low cost. And I am constantly picking up, it's like, if you think of like a trash bag that you use for your trash can in your home, in your kitchen, that same kind of black stretchy plastic, a lot of organic farmers use on their rows for, especially for onions and garlics and whatnot. And it likes to tear and rip, and the sun degrades it. And I don't know what it's off gassing or what is seeping in. And so as every year that we do some tillage or work, you'll see it start to poke up again. So we're constantly picking up trash around the farm, finding these little bits here and there. So I try not to do any of that work. There is a farmer in Clark County who did a study with Wazoo around cover cropping, and they were able to completely eliminate the need for plastic mulches because the cover crop with the crop plant helped eliminate enough weed pressure to make it possible. So I've been studying that and been working my way towards mimicking and following suit in this farmer's footsteps. That was April Joy Farm, who I think also does a CSA. And so I'm really excited for that study and for that conclusion to be so impactful and positive. And I think it's like true, like it mimics the natural lands and environment. We do a lot of natural or DIY pest and disease management. So I have a bunch of like what look like big chemical spray pumps and backpacks and things, but we'll fill them up with like a combo of baking soda and vinegar or something to tackle pests and disease. And you still feel like you're in like a pickle jar when you use ag vinegar. It is intense. So I still like look like I'm in like full hazmat suit because I don't want to smell like a pickle going home. But it works really well. Especially like if you're using it in your home garden, it's going to be amazing. And any like home vinegar even is like perfect. And you just squirt it on a nice hot day on the weeds and it'll take them right out. So it's a great natural weed management tool. But it is vinegary. And then we do a lot of further certifications, as you can see, as I keep clicking through here. So we're Salmon Safe certified, which has to do more with how we irrigate with drip irrigation and managing soil erosion than anything else. We're not certified organic, but we obviously care a lot about how we treat the land and the environment. And that's a very big part of like my grandmother's gardening and teaching practices. And so really taking that respect to the farm as well. And I've also gone through the Master Composter and Recycler program in Clark County that I really enjoyed. It was very hands-on. You get to go out to the 78th Street Heritage Farm and like manage your own compost pile. So I highly recommend that. And I've done some workshops with them where we do vermiculture as well, worm composting. So we try to take those practices to the farm. And I do have a slide in here of some of our compost systems, because that was a question Brittany asked and I wanted to answer. And then I mentioned food donations. So we try to do a lot of food and food waste gleaning on the farm. And often for us, that looks like if we've harvested extra, or maybe folks aren't all picking up their CSAs, they're asking for a break or whatnot. We scoop it all up and we take it immediately to like PDX Free Fridges, Feed the Mass, which is a local nonprofit. Live Well Yoga in Camas, Washington was running a food pantry last year, and I expect that we do that again. And we're always building up a list of folks to work with. And like I said, we work with like Clark County and the Oregon Food Bank as well to bring deliveries to them. Those are usually a little more targeted and a larger amount. And that's where we hope to get the Glean team together. So on the farm, I think that's on my next page. We focus on a huge like ecosystem approach to the farm. So farms are like any other ecosystem. And I often think of like salmon in this sense, that salmon come up the river every year and they spawn and then they die. But when they die, they leave this nitrogen rich nutrition behind. And like bears and eagles and other folks take that out into the woods, right, to eat in peace, and they're distributing that nutrition throughout the forest. And the forest trees are dropping leaves, and that is composting very slowly in our Pacific Northwest winters and building up soil there too. And so really trying to remember that that is part of the ecosystem of the farm as well. So I also challenge this idea of like, what is waste? Especially on the farm. And since we have composting systems or food waste, yeah, it's waste because it doesn't go to someone to eat, to fill them up nutritionally sometimes. But we do mulch it sometimes right there in the fields, and it goes right back into the soil to decompose and start the cycle all over again, and feed the next generation of crops going in that place. So really recognizing that sometimes food waste isn't waste. You can at least compost it, and then it becomes compost and nutrition and fertilizer, which are things we all will actually go buy, right? So we could just recreate that in our own homes or on the farm. And then to reduce the demand and to support different crops will, and I know this isn't like a gardening class, but different crops will fix different nutritions and leave them, exchange them in the soil for other nutritions that they want. So like peas are a classic example where they'll fix nitrogen and drop it down into the soil for later, and other crops like to feed off of that excess nitrogen. That's like the number one nutrition a lot of plants need, that they don't have easy access to, and is water soluble, and it rains here a lot, so you lose it a lot. So really supporting those crops, rotating them, so those crops that really take up a lot more nitrogen than they leave behind, moving them from place to place allows other crops, right, to drop nitrogen back into and like balance out the nutritional demands in the soil. And especially by composting in place in field, it's really helpful. I need a drink of water. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. An example of reducing plastics on the farm. So on the left of this image I snagged from our Instagram is a cell tray, a plastic cell tray. Now those cell trays on the farm only last maybe 2 years. I feel like you could probably get 5 or more years home use, but we're rough and tough on everything on the farm. So plastic cell trays like that one to the left, though they save time in potting soil, they don't last very long. So they're costly for me to continually purchase. And I just don't feel good about the plastic. So actually all the plastic trays we have on our farm, I've never purchased plastic trays. I scoop up leftover ones from other farmers who are trading out and buying new stock. And I'm using up the leftovers of this until they are absolutely you falling apart in your hands. And then we bag them up and then we have to dispose of them. There's not a lot of options out there for this type of plastic. But you'll see the soil blocks to the right. And these are the same type of spinach, the same seed from the same seed packet. And you can see how much larger and healthier the spinach is in the right in the soil blocks than in the cell tray. So not only are we reducing the plastic use, the big plastic tray that the soil blocks are in deals with a lot less abuse, is a little bit thicker, it will last a little longer. And I've also started using metal baking trays with holes drilled in them that have been doing really, really well too on the farm. So now we have like eliminated plastic. And I suppose we could say there are issues around metal as well, but it's definitely going to last a lot longer than the plastic. But they're just healthier and happier and larger. So I'm really stoked with the soil block system and kind of starting to move away and eliminate our need for these plastic cell trays. So that was a really fun accidental experiment on the farm where they were right next to each other the whole time. So we really got to see the difference in growth. And then here's an example of 2 composting systems. So down in the bottom right, hidden in that pile is actually a photo of my master composter and recycler worm bin we made one night while I was in the program. And I have several more of these, but they're just 2 big 18-gallon Rubbermaid tubs. The bottom one has like a hole for drainage. You do get like worm water compost tea out of them a lot. And then the top one has like some ventilation and holes drilled in the bottom. And that's where the worms live and where we'll put like bigger or harder to compost items, or when we clean out the fridge and some stuff's been left behind, it'll go into the worm bins and be composted and then spread out on the field later. And then the larger photo here is, you can see it's solar powered run in that little shed in the back. And there's a pump in that shed, and it is pumping through a big like 3-inch, maybe a 4-inch PVC pipe. And it runs through and then juts out into each of these A, B, and C buckets, big wooden bins. And then this is compost from all the other farmers on the farm incubator, and it's been turned over and under a tarp through the winter, but it'll get shoved into one of these bins and then also turned and processed. And then that forced air compost system really speeds up the composting system without having to turn it so much as you do with like a home static pile. So you can learn a lot about this stuff at the Master Recycler and Composter program. But it's just how we process some of that waste and get it through the farm. And maybe something I hadn't mentioned earlier was with all of our CSAs, we try to reduce the amount of plastic we use to bundle up green beans or other loose items like that, or how we bunch items. So a lot of CSAs will use plastic bags. We can get composting bags. They're not the greatest, and they don't go through systems like this even. They really need to go to a proper, larger and hotter system where the piles could get really hot and help break down those plastics, that corn, silverware and whatnot. But they do exist. There's one out in Hood River. And they also use like cardboard boxes and then lay a big plastic bag in that and load all the veggies up in. And sometimes those cardboard boxes are also wax soaked boxes. And so that whole system, especially the wax soaked cardboard boxes, it's usually petroleum based, so you can't recycle it or like remove it. It's really difficult to find like a beeswax or a natural wax cardboard box system like that could potentially be recycled or managed in a more sustainable way. And then of course those big plastic inserts into the cardboard is to keep the cardboard from getting all soggy and all your veggies dropping out the bottom, which is fair enough. But again, it's just trash again. And that's one of the things I like to do in my own home or on the farm is if I end up with like these larger plastic bags, I'll use them as my trash can bags. So I haven't bought like trash can bags in a very long time because I'll just reuse cat food bags or I have cats or other random bags I come across like that. So we used to use the Rubbermaids like that vermiculture bin is using, but we've actually switched to these little like sandwich top shipping plastic bins. So they're still plastic, but they're built to like be shipped internationally. So they're pretty sturdy and hardcore. They lock into each other nice and easy for stacking for deliveries. And so we're able to wash them, sanitize them, and reuse them year after year after year. And I'm hoping that their life will be a very long one in delivering vegetables to the community. So let's see, we could do Q&A and then I could explain this, or maybe I'll just explain this now. Sorry. So this is a little recipe card I created, and then at the bottom is a link, and I know that you can't click the link, but I think Brittany can share this template with everybody. But one of our favorite things on the farm, if we're not sure how to eat something, we ask, will it pesto? And then we try it. And so I have a basic pesto ingredient list there to the left. And then this comes from my friend Dominica, who also helps who really brought this to my attention. So Dominica was trying to reduce food waste at home and focus on eating seasonally. And one of the favorite things Dominica likes to make into a pesto are carrot top greens. So we don't usually think of eating the carrot top greens, those little frilly things, but they're completely edible. They're great if you want to like throw them into a veggie stock and add that to that, or you can blend them up and eat them as a pesto. And I'm seeing my hilarious mistype there. Will it pest? Will it pesto? So I can share this recipe as well with you all. And then in the worksheet that I have created, it's a food preservation traditions worksheet. So how have you saved or taken care of food or food waste in your own homes with your families and friends? And it kind of goes through how to capture that experience, right? So when I did this, I was thinking a lot of my family is a lot of hunters and fishermen, and we used to go out, me and my grandmother, and pick huckleberries. And so I was thinking about how all the steps of processing and saving and freezing, we did a lot of freezing in our home as a food tradition in a way to savor and capture the bounty and then stretch it out over the rest of the season so that we can continue to eat within the season, within what we have grown or harvested, and still eat it. So it's a fun, I've done it. I used to have interns on the farm, so I've done it with interns. And it's really fun to hear other people's home traditions or ways that they've saved food with their families. Oh, carrot top chimichurri. That sounds good. Let's see. I think that's the last of my slides. Yeah. So this is just a recap. So on the farm, we also raise meat rabbits, which are a French heritage breed meat rabbit. And they also help us with food waste because they'll gobble up all the extra lettuce that doesn't have a home to go to, and they love it. And they're part of that closed loop ecosystem and help us in all these great ways. But I'll let you back up the recipe. Oh, radish greens. Yeah. Blend those up and make a pesto. Yeah, and you can eat pesto in so many fun ways. It's amazing. So I see here, Shannon Hunter asked for a little bit more info around the pricing system for our food. So I can jump into that if we don't have any other questions at the moment. And you can all come off mute too if you want to ask a question, but I'll answer Shannon's question here. So our pricing system on the farm is sliding scale. So we have our market rate, which we have developed from observing everybody's prices for things and special calculations in Excel sheets. And then we chose to go 30% above that for a pay it forward and support each other at higher price point. And then there's a 30% reduction to that for easier access if people can't quite pay that market rate. In last year, the same number of people who paid above directly subsidized the same number of people who bought below. And so that zeroed out and it was perfect. Community came together and met each other where they're at, right? It's equity building and was able to support each other in access to food. We also do payment plans because I myself have been on food stamps in the past. And so that 30%, right, is still below the threshold. These numbers were also pulled from all these studies of economics and people's income levels and whatnot. So food stamps, we also support and help with double up food bucks and access. And those are usually in the lower tier. And then, sorry. And then we also do payment plans because cash flow can be an issue for folks as well. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. So it's hard to buy one big CSA share up front. So breaking that into payment plans. Our food stamps automatically get broken into payment plans so that we don't max out their food stamps in 1 month. So they have no other access to milk or eggs or bread or something we may not sell, fruits and stuff, right? We want them to be able to access all the foods. So we break it up into payment plans. And then we also run a scholarship fund in-house. So anybody anywhere can give to the scholarship fund. We also team up with Growing Gardens and NAIA and the Oregon Food Bank and some others. They've been able to grant us grants that basically go right into the scholarship fund. And then we're able to give free of charge to the end user, the end consumer, vegetables. So that's a great way to make the food more accessible as well. So we've really implemented a lot of different tactics at addressing the cost of food so that me and my employees get paid a fair living wage for the work that we do out in the fields. But that isn't necessarily tied to what the end consumer has to pay to access that great local nutritional food. It's really important to me that we're able to get that to people. So I hope that was helpful. Cool. Oh, I see. For CSA boxes, how do you suggest tackling the box of fruit and veggies for someone new to it and preventing the food from spoiling? Yeah. So we do two sizes of CSAs for like 1 to 2-ish people. It's hard to guess because I never know quite like people's eating out habits, how much cooking in they are. If you're vegan or veggie, you're going to eat a lot more veggies versus if you're not. But we also offer, so we offer smalls and standard size boxes. So one has less than the other. So that's one way to like right off the bat kind of manage that. And like the worst thing is if it's too small and you need to supplement, there's still farmers markets and there's still grocery stores, right? So you can still like go buy other veggies to add to it. But I really would say like pick it up as soon as possible, throw everything in the fridge, and there's all sorts of like clever fridge crisper programs. I think I saw that one of the classes was about how to organize your fridge, if I'm mistaken. Yeah, so that's smart. And to that box program, so I've known farms who do like weekly and bi-weekly as a way to lower the cost instead of a small and a large weekly, which is what I do. They'll do a bi-weekly, but it's the same size box. And I've done that. And it was like feast and then famine, and then feast and then famine. And I felt exactly that way, where I was like, I have all this food. I don't know what to do with it all. And I need to like tackle it right away. And so from that experience, why I offer like the small weeklies and the larges. So it's like a little bit to tackle, just a little bit each week. And then you have it each week and it's like more manageable, at least for me. At the very least, one thing I clearly I come from like a family of freezers. We love freezers. So I usually just wash a lot of vegetables, pat dry them, and then throw them in Ziploc baggies and just throw them in the freezer. And they usually last quite a while that way. One of the tricks I've learned from my grandmother is to place things on a baking sheet and let them like pre-freeze open air in the freezer and then throw them in a Ziploc baggie. And that like increases the longevity in the freezer by like 2 to 3-fold, depending on the item. So that is a really great way. That's what I do. I do that, or I like blur everything together and make soups. I hope that answered your question. Those are some of my tricks. I'm sure other people have wonderful tactics as well. What is my favorite crop to grow? I really enjoy growing, well, the camas has been so magical. I'm super stoked for that. I like leeks, like they're my favorite to eat, and I really like planting them because I know I'm going to eat them later. So I really enjoy leeks, and leeks are another one of those. Will it pesto and like all that green part? Yeah, totally pestos. But I also eat a lot of that green part in just my daily life. I had a roommate once who like threw away like the top 4 inches of green, and I was just like, oh, no, and I dug it out. They thought I was odd, but I really enjoy leeks, and I hated to see that go to waste. And like 5-second rule, and you wash it off. It's all good. Let's see. Yeah. Cindy, is that you answering your favorite crop of squash? I enjoy squash as well. Yeah, Tina. Yeah, CSAs can be kind of daunting, and you're going to get maybe sometimes like maybe too much, and maybe it's like odd stuff that you've never seen. I know kohlrabi is always like a winner, folks, on our farm. and it's a really good route. But I would say also like, right, in like reorienting that idea of like what is food waste. And if you come up with some clever ways to compost at home, like it's not food waste, it's tree fertilizer. And it's all good, right? Like it doesn't have to go to the landfill necessarily, which I think is like the biggest thing to tackle is like how many things are we sending off to landfills. And I could talk forever on that because my mother actually used to work for a truck company to landfills all the time, so I learned all about landfills, and they are gonna be the most amazing time capsule you've ever seen in a few thousand years. People are gonna be like digging through that like we do burial grounds and old cities and stuff to learn all about us and our priorities. And everything's gonna be beautifully preserved in there. Yeah. Yeah, tomatoes, great, make great spaghetti sauces, and you could totally freeze those for later. And again, the pesto, you can freeze that for later. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else I could touch on?
We do have another question in the chat.
Okay. What types of fruits and veggies do I produce in Washu? In Washu, we actually, it's family land, and we have the beginnings of a poor little fruit orchard that my father started and then wanted some help with. And so I have been adding to it. So we have figs and pear trees and cherry trees started there. And they're all in like a young stage. I think the figs will take off really soon. But the other trees are, you know, they were like single sticks with a few branches, right? So they're gonna be a while before they become anything major. But that's what we've been doing in Washougal because he's on a hillside. He's rolled his tractor there. I was like, you got to stop this. So instead of mowing grass and wasting all this fuel to do that, I was like, why don't we mulch some of the land with cardboard and bark chips and plant an orchard. And so we made Blueberry Hill. He likes that. And we've been building that out and establishing more of a long-term fruit access for the farm. And that is just really awesome because I'm renting most of the land, which makes the annual veggies a lot easier to build a business off of and to supply people with. But since my father owns that land, like investing in it in this long-term way with planting trees and bushes has been really awesome and rewarding. And it's fun to see. I have some really toddler siblings who we showed them some mint growing in the grass, and then they started eating like every green thing in sight. So that was, but it was fun for them to like kind of understand that like veggies and fruits and foods and mint, right, are just plants that are growing around us and that they can interact with it. So it was really fun. So that's what we do in Washougal. Yeah, so on the farm, yeah. For native foods and berries, so I hope to establish more of the Nootka roses. So we have rose hips on the farm. You make rose hip jam. And you can also turn it into syrups or sugar it and eat them. And right after a frost in the fall is the best time to pop a raw one in and taste it. They do have a lot of seeds in them, but they're good. Like a seeded grape, right? They have a lot of seeds in them. We do salmon berries. So I have some salmon berries I've started. Oregon grape is another one. Yeah, we have a lot of berries to pull from in the Northwest. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, any last questions? Okay. Anything else, Michelle? Anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if we want to do like the worksheet together, or like, I think it's more fun if you can interview people in your immediate vicinity or family or whatnot, and like dig out some of those traditional preservation techniques from them, right? I think there's a lot of great and beautiful ones out there that family have done for centuries, and just like recapturing those and practicing them again is really rewarding. And I know one thing, like there's a lot of ways to like preserve things with salt. So I've learned to preserve, uh, I've done some like lemon preservation in salt, and also like kind of more warm and savory herbs in salts are really good. Make for really good like umami type flavoring and care. So yeah, really excited for folks to like engage in that worksheet and go through those steps.
Sweet. Well, I'll give everyone homework then. Look at the worksheet. It's not homework if it's fun though. Yeah, thank you so much again, Michelle, for joining us. That was really awesome. Lots of great information. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. We appreciate it, and we're excited to close our second WasteBusters virtual event. So one more thank you, Michelle, for joining us. And I hope everyone has a good rest of their night.
Yeah, thank you for having me.